Good morning and welcome to the Business Lens on Rapid Television Abuja. It is great to have you with us on this edition where we look at how all the numbers and figures directly affect you and your businesses. My name is Divine Alex. So let's begin with the key business trends that matter right now, starting from the headlines. Nigeria is pushing for a major internet infrastructure upgrade, with the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) unveiling a national roadmap to boost IPv6 adoption from about 5% today to levels matching leading African economies within 3 years and around 30% by 2030, as the regulator warns that continued dependence on the old IPv4 system could slow growth in 5G, AI, cloud computing and digital innovation. And in another story, Aliko Dangote says the planned expansion of the Dangote refinery to 1.4 million barrels per day could create up to 95,000 skilled jobs at peak construction, as the group positions the project as a major boost for Nigeria's industrial growth, engineering capacity and long-term economic development. Next is the Nigerian Revenue Service (NRS) has dismissed as false a viral claim that the federal government has introduced a new vehicle tax from July 1, warning the public that the circulating infographic is misleading and directs users to the wrong website, while insisting no fresh vehicle tax has been approved. And away from that, we move to the electricity customers across Nigeria that received 155.84 million naira in billing refunds and credit adjustments in 2025 after verified overbilling complaints were resolved, as billing disputes remained the biggest source of customer complaints, accounting for as much as 37% of reported cases in some quarters. And next up is the ICANN that says Nigeria's aviation sector is operating at just 40% efficiency in its digitalization drive, warning that slow technology adoption, continued manual processes and cash-based transactions are hurting operations and creating room for corruption and inefficiency. And from that one, we move to the market, where Nigerian equities closed the April from 24 to 27 today trading window on a strong bullish note, with a sustained investor demand and policy-driven market adjustments supporting a broader rally across the NGX. Now, we will look at the stories and more, and we will also have an interesting conversation on everything you need to know on tax and more after the break. I am Divine Alex. Stay with us. You're welcome back. This is still the Business Lens on Rapid Television Abuja. My name is Divine Alex. Now let's look to the headline review from digital infrastructure and industrial expansion to energy reference, policy clarity, aviation efficiency and market momentum. Today's headlines paints a clear picture of an economy moving on multiple fronts at once. And I am joined by economist Abiola Adekunle from Key to Markets. Good morning, and it's good to have you on today's episode.
Good morning, Divine. It's good to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. So now let's discuss the headlines properly. I want us to start with the IP6 rollout. Now, beyond adoption targets, what enforcement mechanisms do you think will ensure telecom operators and ISPs actually phase out IP4 dependence without creating service disruptions? And how do you think Nigeria should measure the real economic cost of delayed IP6 transition on AI, cloud, and the 5G competitiveness?
Okay, well, for when it comes to anything that has to do with IT, the first thing is you have to consider the cost, because we browse, we use our phones, we do Wi-Fi, wireless stuff. But at the end of the day, there are backbones, there are physical structures that actually support all these services and technology. So moving on to IP6, of course, it's an increase, because I'm an IT person, so I understand the whole concept of speed. Okay. And the robustness. Now, when you talk about the AI era, especially when you talk about character animation, figure animations, it consumes a whole lot of data. It consumes a whole lot of speed. So I remember when we were on 3G, You know, it seemed as if it was the best thing after jollof rice. And after some time, went to 4G. Everybody was like, do you have a 4G phone? Now 5G. Some people are still on 4G, mind you. The whole economic angle to it is that there must be some form of incentives, right, for telecoms to shift. Apart from the fact that it's been mandated that, oh, shift to IP6, there must also be some form of incentive. So there must be an advantage around it, okay, so that when they move, they know that it's also going to be profitable for them, because at the end of the day, for private organizations, what they are looking at is their profitability. You know, but we also don't want to be left behind, you know, by the whole world. So I feel naturally that telecoms will follow suit. At least the major guys, I don't want to mention any name, but the major telecom companies, maybe by now they've already started.
Maybe by now they've already started. Now, since you mentioned the private, now let's look at Dangote Refinery that is saying that they could give at least 95,000 jobs. Now, if the projected 95,000 jobs are achieved, what proportion do you think will be sustained long-term versus peak construction roles, and how do you think Nigeria will prevent a scenario, you know, where the refinery becomes highly productive but weak in domestic scales?
Well, the thing about job creation is you have to understand what type of jobs they are. Like you said, do you think it can be sustained? If I'm building a house and I say, okay, I can give out 500 jobs, that means those 500 jobs are for the duration of the building of that particular edifice. Once the building is over, those jobs are gone. I remember some years ago, a particular minister said he was going to do 770-something thousand jobs. But those jobs were going to last for, I think, just 3 months. I think 30,000 naira or something. And it was on the headlines everywhere. And I was like, is this really categorized as a job? Because a job should be something that should constantly be there until the person doing the job says, oh, I want to go to another job or I resign. But if it's something temporarily, can it really be called a job? So 95,000 job opportunities from Dangote, are they consistent? Like, is it going to always be, is it permanent? If it's temporary, then I'm afraid that after some time the numbers might reduce. Of course, it's not going to all disappear, but the numbers might reduce. But if these numbers don't reduce, 95,000 is a great start. It's not even a start, it's a whole lot, because we have some local government that are like 95,000. Not in Nigeria, obviously, but like counties that the whole number of persons there is 95,000 or less. So 95,000 is a whole lot of jobs, and it can actually reduce, okay, the effect of unemployment, whether you like it or not, in that locality. Now, the thing about jobs is that it doesn't affect only the people that have the jobs. Okay, I get a job now, I'll feed my family. There are also secondary people that will get jobs from there. Maybe I have to get a housemaid. Maybe I have to get a driver. Maybe I have to get a security guy. So 95,000 jobs from Dangote might not translate to only 95,000. We might even be looking at much more, because there are secondary jobs that will come from there.
Okay, now let's take a swipe to the whole tax thing, the fake vehicle tax. I saw, to be very honest, when I first saw that, I'm like, where is this coming from? Because I saw the image and I took my time to look at it from detail. And the crazy thing was, the person who I saw this on his WhatsApp story is somebody I consider legit. Do you understand? So, and I'm looking at it, I said, okay, let me just go and check their website. Let me see if anything like this is there. Let me understand what happened. So what do you think is the reason why, you know, situations like this keep coming? Would you say that Nigerians are moving fast, or would you say that it's the fear of the fact that people don't really understand the whole tax thing that is bringing these new angles to the conversation?
Well, there are so many ways in which this can, you know, come to light. If you are someone that is conversant with a platform like X, which is formerly Twitter, you understand that they pay creators a certain amount, you know, of money based on the views that their content generates. So I'm used to it sometimes when you have some content just come out of nowhere because people want to garner views and want to get paid. And now some people now cross into the boundary, or cross the boundary of what is real and what is not, fabricating news, which is actually an offense. So that's an angle this might have come from. Somebody just trying to draw attention, garner views, get paid. You know. Secondly, there's also a funny thing that happens sometimes, whether you accept it or not. Sometimes you want to test the waters. You know, so you just use a random publication coming out from nowhere because they want to see if They want to see the reaction of the public to it and use it as a feedback to actually decide what type of tax they will bring out or not. But I know that we have some guests that are coming that will be saying a whole lot of things about tax,
on the tax
I'll just refrain myself.
Okay, but I also want to get your view on this. That is on the part of the aviation, digitalization, plus the ICANN warning. Now, if aviation is operating at about 40% digital efficiency, what specific financial leakages, safety risks, do you think, or even corruption, right? Do you think this can be directly attributed to when we talk about manual processes?
Well, if it's operating at 40% efficiency, it means that they are not capturing everything.
Yes.
So if I'm meant to get 100 million naira in a month and I'm getting 40 million, 42 million, what it translates into is that I will not be able to run what I'm meant to run properly and maybe remit the remaining to the government coffers. So it means that where there should be an AC, I'm just using layman terms, the AC might be broken and nobody would be able to work on it. Where there is meant to be, let's say, an escalator, something that takes you up, and that thing is broken, and because I don't have enough revenue, I cannot handle it properly. So at the end of the day, we just need to major on the major. We spoke about this I think some months back.
Yes.
Someone talked about digitization, and at the end of the day, they had to shift it back after 24
hours. The time we celebrated the whole cashless
I was happy,
thing.
But I was also skeptical that how is this actually going to work? Because we haven't gotten to that level where we can just do transactions within seconds on a queue that shouldn't be more than 10 seconds. Okay, so when I got to the airport during that time, I saw that they were not collecting money. So I now thought back, oh, this is what happened, and they had to cancel it. So they have to go back to their think tanks. They have to go back to the stakeholders meeting and actually look at, because I cannot be losing 60% of my revenue. I will not sleep until I find a way to get at least 99%. Yes, because it's your money. If you're not getting it, then that means that money is going somewhere else. And like you said, you can have leakages and all sorts. And the funny thing about it is that when you empower corruption within the organization and you empower with so much money, it becomes very hard to kill. It's just as if you are giving bacteria food. It gets to a point you want to kill it, it's already bigger than you. So if you're losing 60% more or less, of your revenue to analog processes, then that means you are feeding something else that might be hard to kill at the end of the day.
That is bars. Okay, let's go on this short break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by the Director of Research, NOIPOS, Peter Osaji, to analyze the tax misconceptions and to also look at how Nigerians are reacting to the new reform. Thank you so much, Economist Abiola, for making our time to have this time with us. Thank you so much. See you on the next episode, and stay with us. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is still the Business Lens from Rapid Television, Abuja. My name is Divine Alex. Now the tax conversation keeps getting controversial, but here is what changed under Nigeria's new tax reforms 2025 Act and 2026 rollout. The reform package includes 4 major laws. 1, the Nigerian Tax Act, NTA, that consolidates core tax rules. The second one, Nigeria Tax Administration Act, NTAA, that administration, enforcement, and procedures. Now to the next, Nigeria's Revenue Service, which is the Establishment Act, replaces FIRS with NRS. Now, we also had Joint Revenue Board Act, which is the coordination across tiers of government. Now, we have key claimed reforms, progressive personal income tax bans that reported 0% to 25%, small company reliefs that reported threshold up to 100 million naira turnover in some summaries, and also taxpayer bill of rights, digital invoicing, compliance systems, dispute resolution and ombudsman concepts, broader tax base and harmonization across agencies. Now, this is where the controversy is. The Gazette and wording discrepancy controversy. Now, we had some reports from late 2025 that said some gazetted versions differed from what lawmakers passed, prompting scrutiny and calls for re-gazetting. Now, we also had implementation without trust, where many Nigerians ask if public services are weak, why expand compliance pressure? And from there to the informal sector reality. This part pointed to large informal economy, but the visible formal sector often pays first, and to the next that says timing problem. They said the reforms launched during high inflation, weak purchasing power, and SME stress. And now we away from that one, we move to the next, where they complained about administrative power, where they had fear that stronger enforcement can become harassment if not transparent. And looking ahead, April 30th, 2026 is the filing deadline. Yes, but this year, tax is bigger than forms and deadlines. Nigeria has entered a new tax era with fresh laws, a new revenue agency structure, stronger compliance system, digital invoicing, and promises of fairness. But beneath the reform language lies a harder national debate. Is this true modernization or a more sophisticated way to collect from already struggling citizens and businesses? Because while government says the reforms will widen the net and reduce distortions, millions of Nigerians are asking simpler questions. Why pay more when roads are broken, power is unstable, and inflation has weakened, even though we had, some changes, on the headline inflation? But they also had issues with the fact that incomes are also weakened. Now, the country taxed its way to prosperity without first rebuilding trust. That is a question that is on the lips of many Nigerians. So today we go beyond the soft explanations. We examine whether Nigeria's tax reform is fair, workable, constitutional, growth-friendly, and whether it risks becoming efficient revenue extraction without efficient governance. So I have in the studio the director of a research organization, NOI Polls, Peter Oshaji. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I understand that your company is based on research, and you people, go out to chase a lot of information, and that is why we decided to bring you on board today's conversation. Because, like I said, there's a lot of controversy, there's a lot of misconceptions surrounding the whole tax. And I also remember that I had a conversation with some of my friends yesterday, asking them if they have gone to file tax, and you needed to see the way they are shrugging. They don't even want to have that conversation because they feel like it's a whip-off. So you see the misconception. It took me lots of time to try to explain to them that this is just a misconception. Now, I want us to start with the first one, which is the one I told you about, the tax legitimacy, right? What do you think of this? What is your perception about the whole tax thing? And from your organization, because since you're the director for research, that means you're prior to a lot of this information. How would you tell a common Nigerian that this tax thing is legitimate and it is not a rip-off?
Thank you very much, Divine. And just to say that, of course, the ship has sailed already for the tax law. It's been signed, sealed, and delivered. And Nigerians are now faced with the reality of having to comply. And just to say that, the tax necessarily did not try to raise rates, but, just try to see how more people can comply and how we can widen our tax net in the country. Nigeria currently is one of the least taxed country. In Africa, we are being taxed compared to our GDP way below the African average, which is 16%. Ours is about 13%. And Nigeria really trying to correct some of those. It's trying to, brought this law to not necessarily increase the rates, but to increase the compliance, and so that we can widen the net, and more people can pay their taxes. And I think there's a target of getting to about 18% by 2030, which will get us at least above what the World Bank gives as a benchmark of 15%. And South Africa, of course, is doing far more than 20% currently. So I don't think the issue of taxes, of course, that is what the government uses to fuel its operations. But whether it is legitimate or not now, we did a poll, and I'm happy to share some of what Nigerians are saying about the poll. 63% of our respondents on that poll were opposed to the issue of legitimacy of this tax, or whether they feel the tax is fair, and only 22% were in support of it. That means that tells you that the issue of legitimacy is really hanging, because legitimacy is about popular support or popular opinion for something. So when we looked at the data, there was always a swing for more people to be worried about the tax law than to be in support of it. Largely because of antecedents. You know, and there are 4 real things we saw from our poll findings. First of all, Nigerians don't really understand the law. 63% of our, or 67% of our respondents are aware of the law.
Okay.
They are aware. But of those 67 that are aware, 38% could not say anything about it. So they have very low understanding of the law.
Okay.
As in understanding aside, we have another huge issue with they feel that the law will affect their, you know, daily lives and their purchasing power. Is going to worsen it. They are already grappling with a lot of issues, and a lot of Nigerians are saying this is going to worsen
the
my
situation,
ability to even survive, and my cost of living will go higher. There's also a perceived fear of unfairness generally. Because when we ask Nigerians, do you think the tax law is fair? 62% of them said they don't think it's fair.
Which is a problem.
So that is the issue of equity. You know, those that are poor feel, why are you taxing me? And probably it's an issue of understanding, because if you look at the tax law itself, it's actually so pro-poor. But there's low understanding in that regard, and that's why we're having that complaint. Finally, the trust deficit. So they don't just trust the government to use more money, to get more money. Oh, you have savings already from subsidy. What have you done with it? Now you want to get more money from tax. What will you do with it? So that's the worry of Nigerians. That
is actually the worry of Nigerians. I also remember that someone said that more money is coming into the country right now, but it's looking like we are not at a place where we get stable power. We talk about water. Some states have water issues. We talk about security and roads, you know, all of these things. Now, the question that many of them are asking, why tax more when those things are still lagging behind? What about the people that have been paying before? Exactly. So why do I even need to come into the picture? You see, all of these questions.
Very interesting, because our poll showed that 30% of people that we spoke with before now have not really even been paying tax. They said they've never filed tax before, they've never paid tax to government formally. You know, so right now the concern is that they are now going to fall into the tax because they're going to be made to comply, because the government is formalizing a lot of informal structures.
So do you think that the pause is because of the fact that they are afraid or scared that this time around the government is actually capturing them into the system, or because it is just an understanding thing?
It's a much more of an issue of not able to link tax with development.
Okay.
Because when we ask the people what are your reasons why you will be in favor of more tax, what they said is only 5% said that if there's more tax, then there'll be more development. Most people couldn't link increase in tax with more development. So, and that's the issue. In the government's mind, the government feel if our tax to GDP increases, we have more fiscal space. If we do this, we have more revenue as a government to go around. But the people, when they hear tax, they hear another thing. It's just like I say A and you are hearing Z. So what the people are hearing is my salary will reduce. I have less to spend every month. I have already huge issues to grapple with. Now, more of this little pie is going to be taken away by somebody I don't even know what he's doing with it.
Okay, so I was about to get to that part where I ask you what the most common misconception was during your polls. Like, what was the most common misconception that people raised during your fieldwork when you were trying to gather the polls, aside this one that you already mentioned now? Are there more that they had to talk about?
So, largely, Nigerians were not opposed to being taxed.
Okay.
But the major issue was the issue of trust.
Trust.
Yeah, because they don't trust the government to do more with more. And ordinarily what we say, to whom more is given,
more is expected. Okay.
But with the more that has been given before, has more been gotten back by the people. So there's still a lot of concern, and they don't believe that the new whole tax thing is going to be to their advantage at the end of the day.
Okay,
and
so
you know, the tax is supposed to be like, there's the accountability, social accountability,
accountability,
triangle, where government is supposed to deliver services to the people. People will pay their taxes to government, and you know, that trust should be there as a connecting factor. But people don't believe they will get more services for more tax.
So from your findings, were there any space where they had to talk about what they think that the government can do? And because when you gather all of these things, you must have checked all of the information that got back to you. What did they say would assist them to get to the point where they have to trust the government to be able to, you know, use this tax to do more for us? And do you also believe that the government can actually do more for us Nigerians?
Yes, you know, that's a very important, because the findings of our poll show that Nigerians will want to pay more tax if they're able to link it to development.
Okay.
Take, for example, wherever there is this bond that we see around, the Sukuk bond, that government, you know, borrowed some funds. But anytime you get to a road in Nigeria and you see Sukuk funded, you know, you can link that particular development to that loan. And you can say, oh, I can see this physically, I can see the impact. So I think the government will really need to, apart from communicating for people to understand better, they really need to find a way of linking the dividends from this tax or increased tax revenue to key infrastructures, and say, oh, this was funded by the tax, by the NRS or something, so that people can really say that yes, I can see
where my money is going.
Yeah, I didn't have water before, but now my community has water, and it's tied to the tax that I paid. If people don't see some things that they can, you know, really hold on to that way, then it's the trust deficit might continue to widen rather than.
Okay, so what would you say from your findings is the myth surrounding this whole tax conversation that is fueling the misconception in the first place?
So I think it's all about the historical and all the antecedents over the years.
Okay, which are?
The fact that the government seems to be increasing its expenses and expecting Nigerians to reduce their to manage the little they have more. The government seems to be over, you know, weight in terms of spending, and the people are struggling. And so the fact that, oh, when you took off subsidy, you had more money. So now you want to tax us more. All this is, we are the ones feeling the brunt. There has to be a very quick way to show the people that your tax is translating to economic development. There's key infrastructures available for you now. There's more opportunities, there's more jobs for the people, and I'm sure with that, Nigerians will gradually begin to change. It's going to take a long process, because this this belief came over a long time, and it will take this government a little more work to really get Nigerians to believe more and to expect more from them and trust them.
Okay, so now let's look at the groups, right? Which groups do you think appeared most skeptical in the
so very interesting, because
so
when you look at the
salary
poll, when you look at the poll, you will see that younger Nigerians, within the age bracket of 18 to 35, were the most non-supportive, and most apprehensive. Actually, they are just entering into the working age, and they are really grappling with trying to survive. When you go to the age of people above 35 to 60, you could see worries, but not as much as the very young adult Nigerians. When you go to those above 61, there was very much less worry from them. And probably because they're out of the tax net, or maybe they are not paying tax anymore, but they were the least worried. And then when we also looked at it by gender, we disaggregated our data by gender, you see that more men were worried than women, though it was not so much, but you could see a slight disadvantage for the male gender, probably because they are more in the employment sector, probably for gender, which is part of the gender imbalance we have currently. And so that expression was clear. And when you look at it also by geopolitical zones, we could see that more people in the South, especially the South-South, were less concerned or less interested in the matter of tax. Compared to those that were in the northern.
Okay. Now, do you think that respondents, or did actually, because in the course of your findings, at what point do you think that Nigerians were willing to comply with the tax law if the system is fair? Now, do you think it has something to do with the inflation or the current cost of living already that is weakened, that willingness for them to get into the better clarity of what the tax holds? And then while you're at it, did these respondents link tax payment to maybe among the informal operators? Because I heard that this particular tax law is supposed to bring them into the system more. And it even went as far as getting to the remote workers and people that earn digitally. Now, among the informal sectors and those people that I just mentioned, what did they say would make them enter the tax net willingly?
All right, so tax willingness to enter the tax net, it's a very difficult thing to achieve. It has to be enforced. So you don't have to be willing to enter, but the government is trying to formalize the informal. And that's what the tax law was really more focused on, trying to formalize a lot of informal settings that we have, and now looking at businesses based on their turnover. And right now they have more access to how you transact your business, so you can't just say, I decided not to file my tax. You now have a responsibility after the quarter to look at your inflows and then approach, or certainly you'll be approached at the right time if you actually fall within the tax net, and you have to account to government. So basically, but to say that the effect of the law, it's not that felt yet, largely, but we're looking at towards the middle of the year, more people will certainly begin to feel it more and know, oh, this is really what it means, and this is how I can comply, and this is to the extent to which it will really affect me. Those that are really having more worries, which are the poorer people, we actually at that point now see that, oh, I'm actually not even paying tax, or I'm paying less than I used to pay before. Okay, so now, at that point, probably there will be less apprehension.
Okay, so now for clarity, in one sentence, how would you explain to the Nigerians, especially if people who are disagreeing with the tax on the polls you conducted, how would you explain to them that this is not a rip-off, that this is a system that is designed to actually help us in turn if we do it properly, and also if the government holds up their own part of the bargain?
Yeah, so that's the responsibility of government now. And of course, they made the law. It's time for them to also ensure that they communicate, so that at least that we've given evidence now to government that 38% of those that are aware of this law don't really know
what it means.
So, and when we asked, how do you normally get information about the tax law, most of them said, 44% of them said they use social media. They get the information from social media. And I think about 20% said from TV, and then the rest, So the government really needs to use social media. The people that will be affected by this, look at the age bracket.
18 to 35.
People between the younger, and then slightly those in their 40s and 50s, but people less than 60 largely. Those are the people that will be paying tax. So where do these people get their information from? The poll has showed us that social media must be a strong tool for the government to use. Also, TV. And then you don't ignore any channel and any opportunity. The government needs to come out clearly, in simple terms, for people to understand how it affects them. so that if probably this poll is taken again, we would have that less than that 38% saying they don't even know what to say about the election. I mean, about the
tax conversation. Okay, thank you so much for that one. I wish we had more time. We could go deeper, but maybe we'll have to have a 2.0 for us to talk extensively on the research findings and how we can draw the government's attention to fixing some of the fears that people have. Thank you so much for being on the show today, and thank you too for being a part of today's conversation. And that is it on today's Business Lens. See you on the next episode for another interesting take. Follow us across our digital platforms at Rapid TV, and don't forget to stay with Rapid TV. My name is Divine Alex. Bye for now.